for joining us for another Ninja Agent Accelerator. We call it NA2. I just want to point that out. If you ever see NA2 anywhere, that's Ninja Agent Accelerator. I realize I've been using acronyms for a long time, and sometimes it's not super clear what they are. So that's number one. Number two, Karma, we have a special guest, right?
We do. As always, we have a super special guest, and today it is the outstanding managing broker of Streeterville. It is Grace Kaage, and she is going to be our special guest host for today. Sorry, I think I needed some Kevin's coffee.
Thanks, Karma. Yeah, I am so excited to be here. This is super fun. As Karma said, my name's Grace. I'm the managing broker of the Streeterville office, but we just moved, or we're in the process of moving to 900 North Michigan. So I'm here today. Our first day is December 14th to be open. So it's super exciting, and the office is beautiful. I can't wait for everybody to see it.
That's so great. So is it going to be a retail shopping problem going in there every day?
100%. I have had many conversations with my husband. He's like, no, listen, we cannot have you going into Bloomingdale's every day. And I'm like, yeah, no, I won't. I totally won't.
Liar.
Right.
But you have to walk through something to get there. So, hey.
You do. And the food options are great. And, you know, this could be a real problem, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, beautiful office. So today we're going to get started. We're going to watch the video in just a second. It's about the power of the 8 and 8. And one of the things that I wanted to make really clear is that if you've been watching Coffee this week, or you saw the kickoff for It's All About Love, we've talked about the major 8. This is different. I just want to create a differentiation. This is different. The 8 and 8 is something that all of us can apply immediately into our business. And we're going to talk about it afterwards. But as we watch the video, as always, please, as you watch the video, put your takeaways into the chat. Super important. For a number of reasons. I say it every time. I know we know it, but when you type it in, it logs it into your brain, even if someone else has already put it in. So please make sure you participate in the chat. Number two, I want to point out in the chat, you have a drop-down box when you type into the chat. And so you have the option to send it to all panelists or to all panelists and attendees. I just want to point that out to make sure that whoever you know who you're sending it to. So if you do want everyone to see it, or you're replying to somebody else, make sure you click the all panelists and attendees. And here we go. So please participate, get in the chat, and we'll see you in about 6 minutes.
Hi, I'm Terry Johnson with Ninja Selling, Master Ninja Instructor and Coach, and I come to you today with the power of 8 and 8. The goal of Ninja Selling is to increase our income per hour so we can have a life outside of real estate. And of course, we all like that, as how do we have a life outside of real estate? Well, I'm going to show you how we're going to have a life outside of real estate. But before we do, how do we create the real estate business of our dreams? The National Association of Realtors, they do a study every year, and what they found is that on average, every person knows 12 realtors. That means you and 11 others. So how can this power of 8 and 8 help us? What we want to become is the realtor of choice to the people that know us, like us, and trust us. So flow is how we do that. And our definition of flow is frequency of interaction. See, flow is actually the oxygen of our business. It's the central nervous system of our business. And so here's what flow looks like, is how often am I in the flow with my people? Of course, live is by far more important than anything. How about the telephone, texting, emailing, social media, snail mail? All of these ways are ways that we stay in the flow with the people that know us, like us, and trust us. But our goal should be, how do I become top of mind? How do I become their realtor of choice? So let's dive into this 8 and 8 thing. See, there's a company in Southern California that did a study, and what they did is they took 500 households and they sent something to them every single week on the same day of the week for 8 weeks in a row. And on the 8th week, they picked up the phone and they called them. And they said to them, if you were to buy or sell real estate now or in the near future, what agent would you use? Well, see, what happened with those mailers is that the agent that was on those mailers was a fictitious agent. They didn't exist. Their logo didn't exist. Their brokerage didn't exist. Yet when they made the call, the person that they said would be their realtor of choice was the person that didn't exist. So what this proved to us is it only takes 8 weeks to rent the space in the mind of the consumer. So I've used this twice in my career. The first time I used it, I had been in the business 11 years. I got my license in 1990. In 2001, I took my first Ninja class. And that's when I learned that I needed to have a database, number one. And number two, I needed to be in the flow with those people that I had sold a house to in the past. So once I got that database built, which took a few months, and loaded with data, what I did is I did an 8 and 8, and I sent a postcard every single week for 8 weeks in a row with my name, my brokerage, my contact information, which warmed up that relationship again. And then on the 8th week, I picked up the phone and I called them. Now, awkward call in some cases. I hadn't talked to him in 11 years. I hadn't seen him in 11 years. So, hi, this is Terry Johnson. Remember? I'm your realtor. I sold you your house. But that 8 weeks had warmed up that relationship so that when they heard from me, they were thrilled to hear from me. Here's the great thing about the 8 and 8 or getting reconnected to our people. They don't know that we're supposed to be in touch with them. So when I got back in the flow with them, true story is today, the majority of that 200, give or take a few, are still on our contact management system, because they didn't know I was supposed to be in the flow with them. That's the first time I used it. Then in 2010, I decided to become a Ninja instructor and coach. And when I did, I was leaving a very successful real estate business and becoming a coach. I was rebranding myself. And so what I did was I found the companies that I wanted to serve within the region that I wanted to serve them. And I did another 8 and 8 to company owners and training directors within those companies with Ninja information this time. And within 1 year's time, built so much business that I could hardly keep up with the coaching and the teaching. So both times what happened is I was attracting business to me rather than chasing business. So there's 3 uses for this. One I just explained, and it's the obvious, a stale database, or a database where I just lost touch. I didn't know I was supposed to be in touch, or I got too busy and I just didn't stay in touch. So that would be number 1. Number 2 would be if it's a one-on-one. I just met somebody new at a function and I wanted to get in the flow with them and become their realtor of choice. So I did something every week for 8 weeks and then picked up the phone and maybe went to lunch or dinner or just had a forward conversation with them. And number 3, let's just pretend for a moment that I was a teacher or a nurse and I got into real estate. When I became a realtor, I would need to rebrand myself in my new role. So this would be a way to show folks that I'm no longer what I used to be, but now I'm in real estate. And of course, that same one would work if I moved from one company to the next. Just rebranding me to where I am and what I'm doing these days. We have a saying in Ninja, and it's so true, TSW. This stuff works. If you'll use this 8 and 8, it will work and it will make you top of the mind. I can hardly wait to hear from you. Take care.
So short video, right? 6 minutes, but there were a lot of takeaways in the chat. One thing I would just want to point out at the very beginning, the whole point of this is what Terry started with, which is how do you become the realtor of choice? And sometimes it's shocking when you think other people or everyone we know knows 12 agents. So think about that for a second. How do people end up choosing to go with you? And think about when was the last time you were in touch with some of these people? And I've got a great story, a short one. It came up this week. We have an agent who worked with a client a number of years ago. They recently looked up the client and they had rented and purchased without the agent knowing. And they were apparently tight. They worked together well. And the agent was upset. But the question is, how often had that agent been in touch with those people? And it wasn't very often. So with that, Karma, what are some of the takeaways we saw in the chat here?
Okay. So we had a couple people saying, Cindy among them, frequency is key, that flow is the oxygen of our business. Janet commented, and then a number of people said flow, flow, flow. Ayana said she loves surprising people with snail mail because they get so excited, which I think is a great comment, because snail mail, 15 years ago, everybody threw everything away and they looked at their email, and now it's completely flipped in the other direction. So I love snail mail. Jules, Bob, John, and many others loved. My favorite quote in this video is that 8 weeks rents the space in the consumer's mind. That in 8 weeks, you can become their realtor of choice when they've never heard of you before, if you are in front of them 8 times in a row consistently. It's kind of a mind-blowing idea. And the story that she tells, I thought, was really, really powerful. Katrina's one comment she said was struggles with what to send so that it's meaningful and informative. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, aren't we, Grace? And then, number of people talking about value of repetition and consistency. Your clients don't expect you to stay in touch. One agent, I think it was Trish, said. And then a number of people said better to attract your client than chase, and that the 8 and 8 will revive a stale database. Those were a number of them I got multiple times. And then, of course, people are still typing while I'm talking. But did I miss some that you guys saw?
No, I don't think so. This is such a great video because it's short and it's impactful. And the takeaways, there's not a million takeaways, but the takeaways that are there are really important, right? So one of the things you just said, Karma, and one of the things that's in the chat is, renting space in people's minds. We talked about this through It's All About Love back in marketing and creating exposure during those weeks, but it's about getting people's attention when there are hundreds of other things trying to get their attention as well. So how do you do it? And one thing I want to relate it to that we can all relate to is our drip campaigns. And so if you think about it, when you sign up or ask for a quote from, let's say, Geico, what happens? They email you incessantly for the first week, and then it starts to taper off. But guaranteed, that Geico is reaching out to you. Geico is top of mind. And so it's similar with us. Now, let's not worry about the salesy part. We'll talk about that with Grace in a minute. But I just want to make that correlation that it's about getting people's attention. So with that, Grace, I know you got a lot of thoughts churning. So what do you think?
I do. I'm so glad to be here for this one specifically, because a lot of what I like to work with agents on is a referral-based business. And the thing that stood out to me so much with 8x8 is this fictional realtor who was sending them every single week. And that's like Ann Proper for us, right? And it would be like if some of our homeowners said, hey, I want Ann Proper to sell my home. So this is very real. And I feel like the timing's great, because if you're in a position where you're looking at 2021, and we've all been there, right? Where we have this last closing and then you're like, I don't know where my next deal is going to come from. I don't know where the business is going to come from. Is that the last transaction I've ever had? Like, we get this insecure feeling every now and then. So this is a really nice way to start building the pipe. But I want to address the elephant in the room on this, which is feeling salesy, right? So many of us don't want to be that salesy realtor. And so we sometimes go about trying to get listings in a way that's super discreet. Like, ooh, I want the listing, but I don't want my clients to know that I want the listing. But it's like, guess what? We're in sales, and our clients know that we're in sales. And they should know that you want their business. They should know that you're invested in them. And if you're worried about being perceived as annoying, I want to explore that right now. Let's go there, because I think it's important that we entertain that fear and see if it's founded. So if we're comparing somebody who's reaching out consistently 8 times in 8 weeks to somebody who is not, I want to explore what that client perception is. So if you're on social media and you're posting all of the listings that you're at and the views from this great open house and the closings that you have, but your clients aren't receiving that direct outreach from you, then they're thinking one of two things. Either you're too cool for them, or you're too busy for them, and their listing is not important enough for you to notice them and to take a vested interest in them. And so this is a big deal, because a lot of times I find that we're having conversations about social media. Does that count as outreach versus direct? And the reality is social media is passive branding. It's brand confirmation, and it does not take the place of good old fashioned outreach. So if we're thinking of it as like the same as a house, Your direct outreach is the steal. It's the framing. It is what holds the house up, but your social media is totally different. It's the finishes. It's the lighting. It will help you look really good, but it doesn't hold up the house. And this is kind of a tangent, but my husband plays hockey, right? And one day we were having a conversation and he suggested that I get a hobby, which, by the way, is the fastest way to get into the doghouse, telling somebody that they need a hobby. And so I told him, excuse me, you know what I do? Like, do you know why I'm good at this? It's because my hobby is relationships. I collect relationships. Some people collect stamps, some people collect coins, but to me, relationships are my hobby and I nurture them. I tend to them. They're like little plants and I watch them grow. And what I've found is that no one is ever mad because I reached out to them, right? Like no one's ever like, ooh, that Karma, she's so mean. She sent me a text and asked me how my daughter was. No one's ever like, Kevin Van Ack, he keeps sending me these free market reports telling me what my neighbor's house is worth. And like, I hate that. I hate knowing what my neighbors are doing and what my property might be valued at. And the 8x8, getting back to this and how it all ties in, referral business is not guesswork. It's a science. You have 8 weeks to get your 8 touches in. And what we've learned from our previous It's All About Love episodes and these Ninja Accelerators, everybody you know has 4 people who they know who might close on a transaction in a given year. And we also know that only 6% of realtors are actually super consistent. And so sometimes one of the limiting beliefs that I hear a lot is like, my database is small. But even if you only have 30 people in your database, those 30 people all know 4 people who are going to be closing a transaction this year. So that's 120 transactions. Even if you have a 50% capture rate, that's 60 transactions. If you have a 25% capture rate, that's 30. This is the heart of your business. And it's so important that we get past this idea of like, I don't want to be salesy, because your clients know you're in sales. The jig is up. Like they know it and they want to hear from you. And our competition all has these same limiting beliefs and they're not real. Like it's just a fear that's keeping you from success and from providing from your family and from having all of the goals and dreams that you really deserve to have. So just as we look into 2021, I think it's important to remember this as the why so that we can continue to be consistent, be that 6% of realtors who are actually doing everything that they're supposed to be super successful. And I know Kevin and Karma have a lot of ideas as to how to get there, the different things that you can do. So do either of you want to kick us off on that and talk about a little bit what we can do to have those 8 touches?
Yeah, I'll start really quickly and then Karma can share what her thoughts are about it. So basically a couple of things. Grace, that was awesome. I think one of the key points there that's overarching through this is focus on the people you know, right? Number 1, we already have relationships. Number 2, don't make up stories in our head about what's going to happen when we reach out to them, being salesy or the fear that we have in reaching out. So to Grace's point, nobody's ever mad when you wish them a happy birthday. And also think about it this way. And this goes to the social media that you were talking about too, Grace, which is what we are doing making people feel good, right? Because if we are making people feel good, then we are not salesy. If people feel like you said, Grace, if people feel like we care, if people feel like we're listening, if people feel like we're reaching out to find out how they are or to share information, to your point, how easy is this? Hey, I just saw this listing close on your street. Hope you're doing great. Easy. Is that salesy? No.
Totally. And it's not like you don't want people to think that you're too big time for them. Like, why would I give somebody my listing if they can't even be bothered to reach out to me? This is the most valuable thing that I have. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars buying this property, and you want me to give it to you when I see on social media that you post something every day, but you've never even texted me. You've never called me. I'm not going to give you my business. Right. You know, it's really showing that you care. I love that, Kevin.
Yeah. So we have some tools, but Karma, what do you got?
Well, I got one quick thing before you go into the tools. So one thing that I thought about when I was reading through the chat, something that I always talk about with agents is when we talk about one of the things I love about 8 and 8 is it's a short time frame. Realistically, I mean, 8 weeks is nothing, right? And the idea that you can do something once a week for 8 weeks in a row, But what that does for us, if we get in that habit, number one, now you're building a habit of weekly outreach, of reaching out to people, you're getting more comfortable with it, et cetera, because outreach and marketing is something that you control. You instead of waiting for somebody to drop in and say, hey, I want to buy or sell real estate, you are in control of getting in front of the people that know you, like you, and trust you, and staying in front of them on a consistent basis. So doing something for 8 weeks and then not showing up again for 10 more months, probably not the best idea. But if you're in front of somebody for 8 straight weeks, and then you are consistently reaching out to them throughout the rest of the year, what that does is it puts you in control of how many people you're in front of, right? There's a certain, social media is great. You have no idea how many people you're really in front of. When you do print advertising, we don't know if anybody ever actually opens to that page and looks at your ad. Postcards, a little more, they're going to look and glance at you, right? But when you are doing personal outreach, this is something that you control. And staying in front of people consistently then gives you the ability to start controlling the peaks and the valleys that everybody worries about. Nobody wants, at this time of year, everybody's like, oh my God, what am I doing for 2021? Another common month in a typical year is August, where everybody's deals have closed from the spring market. And everybody's like, what am I doing? What's happening? What business do I have for the rest of the year? Well, if you're in front of somebody all the time, consistently, in an authentic, informative, and real way, then when it's their moment in time, you've been in front of them. If you haven't been in front of them for a year or 2 years, when they finally are ready to buy or sell, they're going to remember the person that's been in front of them the most consistently recently. So that's my comment.
Yeah, that's great. I think that really goes back to the frequency versus volume discussion that we had a couple of weeks ago, which is sometimes we want to target a huge number of people. So we choose, an area with 250 homes of people we don't know necessarily. And we spend a ton of money on hitting them once a month, or once a quarter, or even less frequent. And then we think about our people that we do know. We know that we need to be hitting them just as frequent. So the best idea is when we go back to working with people keep it tight and hit them often, right? Because that's the best way to stay top of mind. And here's my suggestion. It costs money. It costs money, but it is well worth it. The agents that I know that have consistently doubled their business year over year, and I'm talking doubling not from 3 to 6, although that was a point, is doubling from 9 to 18 to 32. The people that I know have done that have set up their database on 3 postcards a month. Every 10 days, their database is getting a postcard. And that takes some work. It takes some logistics. It takes some money. But at the end of the day, going from, let's call it 6 to 9 to 18 to 32, is that not something we all want? Maybe. So think about it. It's frequency versus interaction. I'm glad you said that, Karma. So let's talk about the tools really quickly, because we have some questions in terms of, what do we use? How do we track it? So first, what I want to share is this 8x8 tracking form. Now, this is manual. So just how to use this. And if you've been through Ninja, you've seen something like this, is that we have the 8x8 tracking form down here. What is going to make this easy and consistent for you is that you do the same 8 things for everyone that you put into the 8 and 8 program, so that you don't need to brainstorm every time you need to reconnect with somebody. You have it set up here. Now, the 8 and 8 can be used for one person. It can be used for 10 people. It could be used for your entire database. But here's the key. Remember, it's 8 and 8, 8 and 8 weeks. So this is really helpful in a couple of ways. One is for the people you need to reconnect with. Number 2 is if you want to fire up your entire database, just make sure that you can be consistent with it. And then number 3 is also, and this is a pro tip that I'm inserting, this is great for following up with referrals. So what does that mean? 8 times you are touching somebody after they refer you somebody. And that is key in reinforcing the referral behavior, so that they feel like you're in touch with them. And so you can have a separate form or separate flow of 8 things when someone refers you, what you do or send. And it could be a thank you text immediately. It could be a thank you card gets in the mail that day, so they receive it 3 days later. You send them a check-in after you've connected with the referral. So you make this list, and it's consistent every time it happens. So there's no brain damage in trying to figure out what you're going to do each time. So here's this. The second tool, and Karma's favorite, is the CRM. So when we talk about adding someone that you need to reconnect with, let's make it easy. The CRM reminds you when to reach out to people. And so if you mark someone as an A, you're going to be reminded every 30 days to reach out to them in the CRM. We have to be using this thing because it is there. And if you just look at it every day, you see the people that we have and haven't been in contact with. And if you do reach out to somebody, you mark it and set the next outreach date. So it's automatic. So you don't have a bunch of PDFs or pieces of paper laying around your house with an 8x8 tracking form. And then lastly, because we sometimes wonder what we're going to send out. This was sent out this morning for everyone who registered. So it's the system. It's the options that you can use. Now, we didn't go into a ton of detail about what exactly to send. The overarching rule is, look at this. Thank you, congrats, just thinking of you. It's got to be something that makes them feel good, right? So this is all going to be available. It is already available in the It's All About Love post. So I shared my pro tip there. Carma, what do you got?
Well, I got my pro tip, which of course segues nicely from what Kevin laid up for me, which is a couple quick things. So if we look at this list, we kind of brainstormed, the three of us yesterday, some things that we could do, right? That you could fill in for your 8 things that you're going to do, 1 per week. Number one, my favorite tool, the CRM, my idea would be create a farm that is the 8 and 8 for 2021, put your people in there, and then work through that list and make sure you're hitting each one of them every week. Then you can log the outreach. You'll have it all right there. You can schedule your outgoing e-blasts, like you can send some e-blasts, you can schedule them so that you could spend a few hours setting this up. And many of these things could be done and ready to go, because with one click, if you have all those people in a farm, then they can all get that piece. And the other important pro tip, when we look at this list of things to do, what I want you to remember is making sure that at least 4 out of the 8 things that you do are personal interaction. They're a phone call, they're a text, a video message. I mean, how great would it be to just send somebody a text with a video saying, hey, just drove down your street, was thinking about you, hope you guys are all well. What are you guys doing, to celebrate COVID holidays? Whatever the case may be, super easy to do. But make sure that at least half of these outreaches are personal. And then the other half can be, email, email blast, that sort of thing. But use something personal, snail mail, so that they really feel touched is the whole point. And I think that was kind of the end of my pro tip for today.
That's great. Grace, you got anything to wrap up with?
I do. So a couple of suggestions just to take this a little bit further. You're obviously going to be tracking this in your CRM, but I have always found it's really nice when you start integrating that into your Outlook calendar as well. So if you know you're doing these 8 things, put that into your calendar, if it's Gmail, Outlook, whatever, and then send yourself back to your CRM so that you start to time block for all of these things and they become just a part of your daily routine. And towards the end, as you get to the 8th thing, especially now where people are really craving interaction, but we have to do it in a way that's really safe, I would try to, use all of your creativity to come up with something that could be sort of a call to action for that 8th step. So maybe it's inviting your clients to a car wash to celebrate them. That's something that you can do socially distant. And even if you invite your whole database, not everybody's going to come. They're working, they're with family, they're doing things. So they're not all going to come. So it's not going to be this giant expense, but it does show that you care. It's giving something of value back to them. And even just when you're keeping in touch with them, if you're concerned about the call being awkward or anything like that, remember that 2020 has been a really hard year. And a lot of people have struggled. Some people have been very sick or lost people or just been dealing with e-learning. And there's a lot that's going on. So it's okay for that call to be, I'm just thinking about you. I'm just checking on you. I know this has been a crazy year. I hope you have a great 2021. And hopefully we can keep in touch a little bit more. It's not weird to do because everyone has been hurting in their own way. We all miss people. That's my pro tip.
Love it. Yes, we all, I think we have to just get past the fear of the outreach, right? The fear, what are we doing? Like, this is a good way to guilt yourself, whether it's birthdays or you haven't talked with someone in a long time or whatever it is. If you choose not to reach out to them, you are choosing to not make them feel good. You are actively choosing to not make people feel good. So whatever motivates you, whether it's fear, whether it's guilt, that you're not making people feel good, or the promise that if you foster these relationships or rebuild these relationships, and create connections and you're flowing with people, that your business will grow. Whatever it is that motivates you, just know this is really simple, really helpful. Grace, thank you so much for joining us today. This was awesome.
This was so great. I am so happy to be here. And this is really exciting and fun for me. So if anyone ever wants to talk through this or have brainstorms, I'm always available to help be a resource. I genuinely, in my very nerdy way, enjoy all of this stuff. So I'm always happy to help.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Karma, thank you.
Yes, thank
Good as
you.
always. And thank you everybody for joining us. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Get your 8x8 started. Just start thinking, make it easy at first, right? Instead of doing this entire database thing, who are the people you need to reconnect with most now? And let us know the results. Send it to coffee@appproperties.com. Let us know what happens as you begin to connect. So the process right now, what I would do walking out of here is create the 8 steps that you were going to do for everybody. Of course, once you have that written down or set up, you can modify it to change it for specific people, but at least you don't need to spend a lot of time recreating the wheel every time you have somebody new. So do that and highlight, let's say, by Sunday, you have 5 people that you are going to start in the 8 and 8 system, and let us know how it goes. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.